These mornings have ragged edges that the afternoons hone to an almost unbearable sharpness. The sun shines a bluish moult of day, surreptitiously masking a stuttering madness of strange smoke rising. Awake inside the rain, a cutting cold follows spiders into the ground, to crouch and wait. Folded warm together in the cabin of the truck, they waited for the watchman, trading softly in memories on the morning of the 23rd. His fingertips tapping cautiously at the radio app, he sighed aloud and wondered if the smoke had gotten as far as the river. She looked at him with kindness, in her quiet, gentle way, grateful that they had thought to bring along extra food for the child. The staccato klaxon of the emergency broadcast system sounded like a toy pop gun emanating from the tiny speaker. Even in the warmth of the truck, with her and the baby, he still felt a chill at the first deeply familiar tones of warning. This is Watchman, and then the familiar silence. This is Watchman, but then a longer pause, and he wondered if the app had gone quiet. In the long, silent wait, he searched her eyes with worry, but she was steadfast as always, helpful and kind. Finally, the familiar voice returned with one brief hint of the unfamiliar. This is Watchman. We apologize for the delay. Absent-mindedly, he held together the loose ends of the hem of the t-shirt with thumb and two fingers, as though cradling a drowsy newborn. Faded and fading relic, it still gave him cause to revel in moments, and to think of days busy with scenes even then unraveling. When he looked into her eyes, the hardness of the time between past and present did not figure. Seeing her smile, knowing but undeterred by things to come, he barely felt how much he needed less since she was there. Clasping their hands, fingers intertwined like a ring of claddagh, they sat quietly in the quiet part of day before the sun. In the weak early light, they sat quietly blessed by the strangeness of silence, and were in silence wed, in fortune and in fate. He felt a gentle refrain of his childhood as he swept the sky to indicate the spot where the proud hawk was passing overhead. Following him with her eyes, she made a tiny, happy sound remarkably similar to the laughter of the child when she found the bird in the sky. And even the infant, quiet in the crib, occasionally chirruping some sign of contentment, seemed to sense the calm of the place. The afternoon meandered, giving no reason for them to count time past, since last they'd heard the distant echo of calamity. The day had grown long, like the beard of leaves on the nearby sugar maple, and cordial and courteous, the sun ambled off unhurried toward the horizon. They had lingered over lunch in the calm and camouflage of the clearing among the trees, savoring the respite from flight and savage shadow. With the child settled and makeshift cookware stowed, they sat together quietly, wondering whether to stay or to return to the uncertainty of the road. Calling him toward her with a mysterious smile, one arm held awkward at her side, she produced a tiny bag, as though by magic from thin air. Fumbling slightly as he took it, and again when he peeled the paper at the edge, finally he pulled the bag free, chuckling aloud at the sight of the candy inside. Some vague hint of motion at the edge of the clearing brought him half around, just when they had nearly settled on staying the night in the woods. Masquerading as a shadow, the movement took form while he counted the steps from where they stood to the safety of the truck. Grayly alive in the smoke of gathering darkness, a small cloth draped around its head like half a cloak, the vague figure revealed itself an old man. For a timeless instant they stood and watched, two together and one alone, each unable to compose any idea of forward motion in the encounter. When finally she spoke, it sounded like the greeting of a sparrow, so unguarded and genuine in its pleasant breath of welcome. The old one echoed her greeting, but sounded entirely different, his tone and tenor making clear all he had been through, and the sad fact that he was now alone. Saying nothing more, the apparition then vanished, as though swallowed whole by the gathering darkness, its leaving as unsettling as its appearance. While they drove on hours later, he wondered at the strangeness of the times, while she marveled at how normal life could still sometimes be. It was nearly 3 when they passed over into the northern states, the sky along the dark road a silent carnival lit by moon and stars. He glanced over at her as she slept quietly in the passenger seat, her head just barely touching the cold glass of the window. The sameness of the miles passing beneath them made him more aware of the stillness of the night and the peace it brought amid the darkness. Loath to leave her and the child, even for the instant it would take, he nudged her awake as he maneuvered the truck into the rest stop. Quickly he entered and finished and turned to leave, only to suddenly find himself face to face with words scrawled in black across the white tiles. An open letter to our enemies. You think you're smart with all this killing, but you're not. You're just wrong. In the strangeness of the moment, he read it again, and in some weird way it made him feel better, as if beckoning in some bizarre sign of welcome. With a nod of appreciation for the unknown author, he hurried outside, back to the happier poetry of her and the truck and the child. pouring a glory of morning on the surface glass of lake. The sun served the day with the keen eye for detail of the very best waiter in the finest French cafe. They set their camp at the water's edge, folded safely together with the child, in the cool embrace of the forest. Alongside the crib, a tiny pine tree fairly beamed at the assortment of oddly shaped packages, wrapped in spare scraps of shiny paper. The truck sat at rest on a smooth rock nearby in a clutch of evergreens, speckled with badges of dried soil gathered on the journey. In the sky, a large fowl cried out to beckon the past, but with fear and loss and harm having finally grown old, they were content to let the moment begin.